I'd like to welcome you to the John James Reading Series. The John James Reading Series is a monthly reading series we hold here in the Heritage Room, and it features readings by Nebraska authors. This evening's reading is by Twyla Hansen. Twyla was a featured poet in the fall 1987 issue of the Elkhorn Review, as well as being the winner of the 1988 Elkhorn Review Poetry Award. Two of her poems were published in the Nebraska the Individual Voice, and that was a special issue of the Prairie Schooner devoted to Nebraska authors. She's also been published widely, among the places being the Nebraska Review, Midwest Quarterly, and the Kansas Quarterly. Twyla.
I was told to watch out for this deal up here because I can't turn pages. Give this a try. I want to make an announcement. Tomorrow at 1:30 in Andrews Hall at the university will be David Lee, poet, reading as part of the Nebraska, I don't know, it's some kind of series. It's going across Nebraska. And he's an excellent poet. If any of you get a chance to go to that, it'll be in the second floor lounge, Andrews Hall. He's from Utah, excellent poet. If you can be there, don't miss it. I'm real happy to be here tonight. It's kind of exciting. I don't know what to say. Oh, come on in, Leon. Sit down. He's late, but you know. That's okay. Sit down in front. Hi, Rick. I'm real happy to be here. This is an honor, and I want to thank everyone who's heard my poetry and helped me with it along the way. It's fun. I'm going to start off with some poems that kind of start at the beginning with me, kind of some of my early poems, and I've been writing 3.5 years, so my early poems aren't that old. But it kind of starts out, I have a manuscript of poems called Airing Out, and it's out searching frantically for a publisher right now, but there's no word on that, so that's good. But it kind of goes through, starts with my childhood, and kind of moves into adulthood. So that's kind of the way my reading will be tonight. Can everyone hear me okay? Good. The first one is called Airing Out. On a bright day frozen in January, Mother props open the upstairs storm windows of the old farmhouse. Airing out, she calls it, a midwinter chore. I move from room to room as if in a trance, touch each frozen dresser, each frozen bedpost, my breath a cloud before me rising as if soot from the belly of an ancient coal furnace. I trace each flower on the wallpaper, each swirl on the linoleum. They are unreal today, yet solid as anthracite in memory. At night, the storm windows again secure, I huddle beneath a hand-tied quilt. With aired-out lungs, I breathe and dream. The old house, meanwhile, wheezing its stoked-up lungs deep into a frozen night, puffing smoke to the endless white countryside, the clear, frozen landscape of home. That poem appeared in the Prairie Schooner. It was one of the very first poems I ever had accepted. I was glad of that. This next one's called, hi John, Making Lard. These people teach at Wesleyan, what can I say? But they made it to class, thank goodness. This next one called Making Lard. This one will appear in a special farm issue of the Midwest Quarterly sometime this year. Atop a wood cook stove, pork fat melts in kettles, its odor rising through the house to thicken the August air. Mother's making lard, a process affecting us all. Already we begin the tasting of biscuits, of pie crusts, of deep fries that will carry long into a lean winter. We tend fire in the cool dampness of a summertime cellar, a kindling of sensations. Meanwhile, this business of heat and melting and fire filters through the screen door to the farmyard, is carried by the south wind to pig pens where wallows the next crop of bacon and pork roasts. The breeze cools their mud, covers them with kindred memories, allows them to rest, to render inside themselves recent meals. I read that poem one time, I think it was up here, for a special reading of the Prairie Schooner writers, and I made a dumb remark afterward. I said, well, we're all making lard, aren't we? Well, anyway, you had to be there. This next one was in a booklet called Songs for the Granddaughters. It's called Doing Windows. The booklet was put out by the Lincoln-Lancaster County Commission on the Status of Women. Doing windows. Using vinegar water and towels without lint, sweat forms under my flannel shirt as in late summer sun I clean windows of my brick city home. Not a chore, but a remembrance of my helping mother with farmhouse storm windows, carrying them heavy from the cellar, washing glass in the sunlight, trying my best to measure up. Not a duty, but an experience shared, hanging them outside upstairs windows, my body an extension of hers, spreading cleanliness to the far corners of our mutual earth. Not a task, but a celebration, each wiping motion complete unto itself, working our hands with such synchrony, leaving no pain untouched. This preparation, this clear invitation, even today, to winter sun's long, cold warmth. This next one was also in that booklet called Piano Lessons, and I wish I could perform this one like Dorothy Appleby did. There was a special performance at the banquet, and also was taped on NETV. This one's called Piano Lessons. I don't know if any of you had experience with piano lessons like I did. I took lessons for 7 years. I never made it past the second grade. Or was it the third? Well, anyway, we can't all be talented, I guess, in that respect. Piano lessons. Above the Piper funeral home at an old Baldwin upright, Mrs. Ruby Moran sits patient, listening as I falter through Thompson's third grade lessons, her firm, round face not revealing what my fingers lack, talent to bring the notes to life. A diversion, I smile and nod when she says the same section I must relearn, must practice much harder for next week. Most likely it won't help. Another Saturday session will only make her $1 richer, me a bit guiltier. But when Mrs. Ruby Moran sits at that solid oak bench, her round fingers rolling renditions of Chopin or Schubert or Bach with such grace, such ease, no longer am I sitting morose in a small-town Masonic hall, but living my other life, the one so refined and so removed, this dusty excuse of an elegant drawing room floor, ditched forever. It's kind of ironic, isn't it, Leon, that I spent so much time trying to get away from all that. Then I end up writing about it. This next one's called My Brother Randall Teaches Me to Ride a Bicycle. He probably doesn't remember this. This is going to be in a magazine called Wind. the next issue. So watch for it. Shortest bike around, yet it requires wood blocks on the pedals, these legs stretching and stretching now to be older. My middle brother, expert on two wheels, leans it against the chain link under a silver maple, demonstrating the art of getting on. One hand on the handlebar, the other grasping fence, one leg over, a delicate balance in the summer heat of the gravel farmyard. And abruptly against my poised silence, he's pushing the back fender down the lane, hollering, "Steer, steer," as if that's all in this world it ever takes to get us there. When he lets go, I don't fall. By some miracle there in the dry land dust of a rural county, I'm suspended on that balloon tire bike. From that summer on, never once returning half so small. I went to a country school, and I bet not everybody here can say that, but it was quite an experience. I thought everybody went to a country school, but I guess not. This poem came out of that experience, and some of you have heard this just recently. It's called Eddie. This is a real person, too. His straight-edge flat top forms a black V above jet eyes piercing night into the brightest day. Bad Eddie, big kid for an 8th grader, whacks at pigweed with a switchblade near the schoolyard fence. In the dirt lane, a safe distance, we eye him over Mumbly Peg, the air heady with corn shelling, the fire of late goldenrod from the ditches. Teacher watches out the window. Last week it was Bobby locked in the outhouse. Yesterday, poor Kimberly bullied into the storm cellar. Today, the sun glints off his front tooth filling like a signal to the stratosphere. He laughs out loud at some manic joke. We can't know that 20 years from now he'll be found somewhere dead, gone, caught in the wrong end of a drug deal gone bad. It's all we can do now, not to watch him, the sun nipping at the blanched corn stalks, the sharp air of fall bringing shivers to the blanks of our mouths. That was Bad Eddie. This next poem was published in a very obscure journal. It's called Country Girl. I think this poem probably says more about me as a person than anything else I've ever written. So listen up. If you want to know, I mean, you know, right? Okay, Country Girl. She's beginning to blossom in the sweet clover, among the milk cows straying. Near woman, she ruminates in the bunch grass, in the pasture, an innocent, bleeding, shaping hip and breast in a field of udder, forbidden flower. White clouds puff, exhale, erase clean then a blue slate of sky. Billow and billow now in the sky. All those stomachs bloating beneath a spring sun. Wind catches her ringlet curls, lifting a gathered gingham skirt to the rolling hills. Rising and falling now in the rhythm of cud to the wide green sash of earth. Taste of sweet, sweet belly rot from the ground up. This next one is, I suppose, revealing too. I think everything you write is revealing, right? This is called the Pine Grove. That's some of you have heard this. The Pine Grove. I didn't understand until later any sense or the thrill of it all. Why, one summer my brother and cousin played Injuns off in the pine grove, half naked, wearing only a loincloth bound at the waist with baling twine. Big deal, I probably thought, then maybe didn't think about it again. Girls were already excluded from the treehouse, so why would this be different? I wore hand-me-downs with patches while they smeared mulberries over their bodies. The grove hid us from the nearby county road. I was more interested then in the squirrel we caught in a cage, lured by meat scraps. Mother warned against rabies. The braves circled a campfire we were told never to build, while I tried to tame a wild thing. It gave me frantic-eyed looks as it tore around inside the cage. The warriors took turns shooting homemade arrows into a hay bale. After a week or so, the squirrel died. We buried it in our pet cemetery in a row beside the distempered cats. Next summer, both boys spent their days on tractors in the fields. Out of the blue, Mother told me that one day I would become a woman. I was too embarrassed to ask how. I never trapped another animal. Instead, I spent long hours lying in the brome grass naked, tickling my body with those plentiful seed heads, flying wild as a jaybird then under the leafy boughs of the pine grove. Thank you. After the farm sale. Manure in the hog barn, once ankle-deep fresh, compost now in heaps inside empty wooden pens. Activity in the corn crib consists of a few mice rummaging for the last dry kernels. The once-filled machine shed only smells now of tractor, plow, planter, oil stains on its dirt floor indicating former occupancy. In a rusty wire fence roll, a black and yellow garden spider, fat as a quarter, contemplates this old farm from the middle rung of its cottony ladders. What's left of the household possessions is being moved to town, family included. Cattle pens and milk barns stand silent, expectant. From paneless chicken house windows, two brown spiders gaze with compound eyes beyond the unharvested cornfield toward the third alfalfa cutting in the West 40, awaiting further orders. That's kind of the end of my early section. The next section takes us through some season stuff. First one's, appropriately enough, titled January Thaw. A plump moon tonight hangs orange above a leafless tree line, warming the frozen snowfields, washing its neon light down the phone wires, spreading the message. Winter is but a state of mind. Nothing lasts forever. Bundled in these January skins, at first I miss it. Hiss of melting beneath ice, sway of freed branches in the breeze, warmer air filling the night as it nips away at the season. Soon what lies dormant must rise. Marigolds bronze from their mulch beds, seed heads waving in the pasture, lush temperate days peeling layers like an orange, its sweet juices surging through these limbs, suspended now in this thaw, floating like so many impossible moonlit dreams. Instinct. This one appeared in Songs for the Granddaughters and Plainswoman. Because it's spring, and because the sap rises steadily, so rises today the farmer in me. The outdoor beckons, renewal burns in my veins this first warm weekend. So strong is the calling, I become the straw hat madwoman, mowing, chopping, whacking the acreage with a coarse tooth rake. Out of my way, the dog whimpers under a tree, birds retreat to the distant grove, squirrels blink. Because it's spring and because it's time, I till, gather, glean, prepare to nest again, yet another season. I don't always feel like that in the spring. I did that time. This next one called 9 Mile Prairie, mid-May. And if any of you have never been to 9 Mile Prairie, I would highly recommend it. It's very close to Lincoln, and it's a wonderful place to go out to and just look around and become amazed that there's a tract of land as large as that. There's like 230 acres of unplowed ground. It's wonderful. And it's something that's always kind of boggled me to think that this has never been plowed. So it's inspired quite a few poems for me. And this is one of them, 9 Mile Prairie, mid-May. Out here on a hilltop, you discover how brief sunset lasts, watching the red ball sink into the dust, shadows paling the flat-chested hills now knitted in green. Down in the gullies, cool willows and elms thicken with gnats. Birds scatter, bedding down the day, a gradual loss of light slowing all things to still life. Toward moonrise, deer step out of hiding, owls sweep their prey, bullfrogs chant in mud. In step with the breeze, blue stem rise and fall, cottonwoods rattle, wild indigos bloom. Each day the repetition of sun and wind and sun, you feel it breathe from the bottom of its deepest roots. This tall grass relict exhales its stored up heat back to the stars. It really is something to see the sunset out there. This next one's called View from I-80. As you know, I-80 takes everybody through Nebraska. And when you talk to people from out of state, they always say, oh yeah, I remember Nebraska. You know, it takes them forever to get across here. I got to thinking about that one time when I was driving out west, and I guess that's how this poem came about. Along the meandering Platte, logs of fallen cottonwood lie bleaching in the sun, reflected in the bright pools of sandpits and of sinkholes, the sandy clay loam along its banks loosening and silting into its myriad states. Year in and year out, thousands of cars like mine keep hurrying off to somewhere. And this view, then, from the road keeps getting blurred. The time of our rising up, fluid and shifting. Then when it is time, the lying down and the letting go. This is also a river poem. This one appeared in a magazine called Small Pond last year. It's called Navigating the North Platte from Lingle to Torrington. You might know where that is. It's in Wyoming. We do it on an August Sunday afternoon. 5 canoe parties attempting to untame a Wyoming river meandering toward Nebraska. With essentials packed, beer being more essential than food, we slip into the slow snake of stream, What remains of the Rocky Mountain snowmelt, soon to join its cousins eastward to the Missouri, south to the Mississippi, eventually to the Gulf of Mexico. And while not able to make that entire trip, we nonetheless must wonder at the ways of water, the shifting of sandbars as we glide hazily and carefree skins away from the source, in awe of surrounding silence, the turns, the whirlpools, the fallen logs, the order of which stretches just beyond the next bend and then the next, ever, in spite of this random voyage, somehow perfectly balanced. Nuance. This appeared in Prairie Schooner. This nuance, known as tall grass prairie, without fanfare, on roadsides, on marginal land, clings to its isolation, near extinction, timeless, overseeing the seasons, the extremes, the averages, observing as of recent the rise, the fall of farming and farmers. Here in eastern Nebraska, the nuance known as tall grass prairie, in its rooted subtlety, lifts us up. Travelers, we pass briefly. In its constancy, this fragment, this ancient nuance, goes on yielding its unsung hay. That's another prairie poem. Actually, that poem came out of a little drive up to Omaha one day, and they planted a lot of native grasses along the interstate, and somehow the word nuance just struck me. That's what native grasses are. They're pretty subtle. Driving home early December. Late on the day after a snowstorm, the platinum sun dips low below a gray hemline of cloud, and for a few minutes as I motor west toward that sudden brightness, the petticoated earth seems to shrug its thick shadow, showing off its delicate white ankles. And beside the highway, the lighted Burlington rails become the golden slippers I sometimes dream of, the ones which allow me to escape, zephyring all the way to the west coast and beyond its glass-eyed edge, fairy-tailed into that sinking pumpkin coach called sun. This next, I'm going to shift gears just a little bit here. So hold on, Jim. Move into a different section here. Slightly different poems. This one's called Being Late. Some lessons are learned too hard, too late. Back when I was drifting in first semester indecision, my mother would admonish, "Don't be home late," as if the early hour would somehow make us behave, prevent the undressing of young desire. As if an empty warning could begin to unteach the lesson never taught, my love and I discovering hormones that would have their way in raw daylight. There were no small choices then, only the choice between marriage or bearing the shame in hiding. A high school friend went away, would wonder later about that part of her lost. I was one of the lucky ones. My son will never be late, clad in adolescent hormones and out until early mornings. But like history, I repeat and repeat, remind him of the odds, though the times have changed and so have the choices. To his, "Don't worry, Mom," I can only reach back, recall how being late carries into the future its far, far cry. This one kind of goes along with that. It's called Driving East. Driving east toward Iowa, his mind is not, I'm afraid, on the road surface, my 16-year-old sporting his dark glasses, the AC and FM on high, not thinking once of the wheat now ripening, the ankle-high beans, or the way the wind and humidity combine to make any cornfield a waving screen. Nor does he, I'm sure, even notice the red-tailed hawk, the way it positions itself on the fence post with keen eyes watching to separate reality from mirage. But rather he is reminded, I fear, as the Olds rounds another hill approaching the Missouri, of her gentle body curves when she giggles the way her eyes light, or perhaps at this moment in the mirror combing her hair, at her grandma's now for the summer, how she knows his hour's drive to her hometown will soon be over. How it feels when they touch, how this shimmery hot sun is even somehow brighter, how for today and all their youthful days this road just somehow never ends. They say that youth is wasted on the young. That's what that poem came out of. Yeah. This is kind of a looking back poem. It's called In 8mm. My dad used to take home movies, and I never thought too much about it when I grew up. Just part of life, you know, everything you did got recorded. I mean, special occasions, not too many common things, but it's funny to look back at those now, because he did it for about 15 years, I'd say. And that little, well, it's really something to see anymore. It's pretty funny. I didn't think too much about it till my folks hauled it out and showed my boyfriend one time. It was embarrassing. But now it's funny. In 8mm. The 1950s run across the screen like your long dead pet, then a pup. There you are, shy toddler, impish schoolchild, Christmases, birthdays, summer nights, acting out a scene, the only life you've ever known. Your windmill, cotton sash, and saddle shoes, the squint and heat of floodlights, you're all up there being recorded like some amateur news for a curious future. Smile for the camera, your older brother nudges, this time gently. You smile, and the chromatic world in blurred vision silently reels past you, fading. This one's called Gravy. My oldest brother passes me the gravy, and today it doesn't slip from my hands to my lap like some 30-odd years ago. Scalding gravy down my front, me screaming, mother snatching me up, stripping me in the kitchen, three brothers snickering at my nakedness. Old habits are hard, they say, to break, but mother's food would seem odd without all the trimmings. Youngest in the family, I now approach 40 and remember the farm meals, hearty, expanding the fuel and of labor, eggs, heavy cream, pies, every cut of beef and pork imaginable. Today, father watches us eat, arteriosclerosis, hardening of the arteries taking its toll. He's fed by a tube and distances himself. Now the gravy pools on my mashed potatoes while we joke about trivial matters, our children laughing around a card table in the next room. Each bite, mother's cooking, tastes better and better, reminds me how likable now these brothers are, how severely father has aged, how this body, uncertain toward its downhill run, thrives on its habits for better or for worse, fueling the future like borrowed time. That's nice, thank you. I want to finish up the session with some love poems. This first one's called Fantasy. It was published in a magazine called Rhino. It takes you, in spite of your deliberateness, to that place you want to go, need to exist. Lighter than morning light, it sweeps you off your toes, breathes hot and heavy above the lobes. Just when the earth begins stretching, warming from its winter nap, or when it's thinking hibernation, you're bitten, whole. Fireplace, campfire, high noon, full moon, you touch, you breathe, you're hooked. You can't hide from that place, you don't even try. By the surge that's now rising and rising from the solar plexus to the odd catch at the base of your throat, you already know it's too late. It's fantasy. This one's called The Other Woman, and it will be published in Kansas Quarterly sometime. We never know when, I guess. I wrote this a couple of years ago in a class. It's called The Other Woman. As I picture her, she has no basil, no cumin, no sun-hardened hyssop, nor sage around her eyes. She never catnips, but laughs comfrey, tansy with a primula smile. As I think of her, she's angelica, foxglove and jasmine, somewhat peppermint, not letting you see all her saffron at once. One day I'll meet her, that rue woman, that wild indigo teasel, somewhere neutral, free of woodruff and of dropwort, some summer savory. She's the nose set to lavender, eye full of sesame, ear ringing rosemary. She's wind through wild time. Are you getting tired, Jim? Okay. He's kind of my gauge over here. Yeah, I see him sinking to the floor. I know. It's too late. Okay, I just have a few more here. This one's called March 20 poem. I'm always kind of fascinated by the equinoxes and the... It's kind of weird to think that, you know, there's a line where the sun crosses over at this exact moment. They have it figured out. I don't know how they know that stuff. But anyway, I wrote this poem called March 20 poem. Tonight at 9:52, the sun, they say, on its tireless path toward its equinox, will cross the equator and ascend north. And if you believe that, can love and hope and equality be far behind? That out of this dreary madness the earth can vernally rise, intensified by sun and warmth and knowledge that once again our restless bodies will rotate their outer skins, will shed their outer skins, and rotate to face each other in the fleeting promise of morning light. Now let's try another one. This next one, I'm happy to report, will be published in the Nebraska Review. I just got the word today. And I'm very pleased because it's another prairie poem. It's called When the Prairie Speaks. When the prairie speaks, it whispers, I'm wearing my purple dress, my red slip, now my golden wild underthings. Oh, can you recall how on that autumn afternoon in a slant of sun, the breeze called you out of that stone life, how you and your love took flight skyward like startled pheasants. It says, I'm the distant hillside, patient, waiting for you, discovery in every season. Laid out, it whispers, I'm yours, be listening. Okay. Okay, I have about 3 more here. This one's called Today. Sun rays dance across the glass, and I wonder, can we know it enough? If you had told me this would happen, could I have believed it? How the world spins, seasons change, and ever so gradually our intercontinental bodies now touch. Sun in my window warming at home, take it while you can. I remember when we first saw light, when the new held us, but we must, it seems, begin again. By subtle intensities, love ripens. Indian summer spreads its brilliance over the sky. From my window, a timely summons. I begin to awaken, to stir. Outside, sumacs igniting the flame. This one's called Thinking of You While Driving Nebraska 183 between Alma and Holdridge. That's the longest title I've ever used. The poem is longer than that, but I don't know whatever happened there, but Thinking of You just didn't sound long enough. This early summer evening has dimmed orange, its remaining sheen a silhouette on the murky flats of the Harlan County Reservoir. And traveling north between Alma and Holdridge, I'm thinking of you, your presence steady as the farmyard lights out of the corner of my eye. This Platte Valley spreads thick its low hills, sprouts a scattering of trees and a sandwich of earth and sky, offers a sacrifice of moths on the altar of windshield. And the sky, expansive and cloudless, heavy dark air crowning it all. Yet even in this void we are not alone. Narrow fingernail clipping of moon and Venus beside it now join in, pace our journey here together. From green hill to distant furrowed bottom, their brightening light like a wry smile in its side dimple. Yet satisfying and as close as you, here in my mind, linked across the vastness on this strip of road as we surely are. Okay, I just have 2 more. Is that enough? Is that okay? Okay, I lied. Okay. I just want to end with a couple of love poems here. This one is, they both have love in them, in the titles. How about that? So you won't miss it. The first one's called Love Poem from the Prairie. And this will appear in the Cimarron Review sometime this year. On the hill, this is the season, I wait for you. My hair, gold-tangled Indian grass, untamed blue indigo eyes, coneflower breasts, thigh-deep in blue stem, goldenrod legs, arms full of gay feather. Come lie with me, breathe my purples, my golds, taste my rose hips, touch my milkweed, my side oats grandma, nest in my wild rye. Hear the wind as I sway and sigh with me under the sun. Take me for what I am, love me while I live, and later, under the harvest moon, think of me in your wildest dream. And this is the last one I'll read tonight. You've been very patient, Jim. Thank you. I'm picking on Jim. That's not fair. I paid him handsomely. Okay, hold it down back there, would you? This turns out to be an anniversary poem. Wednesday night love poem. You squat and swill brew while I poke sense into sticks, the sun behind our backs dipping too low meanwhile ever to recoil. Night pulls down fast like a heavy drape, drawing frost to meet it on the barren horizon. We are about to feast, you and I, two antiques we can't seem to outgrow, brain and belly catering to a most primitive call. We hunker toward the heat, logs forgetting their history, breaking into beautiful flame. Overhead, leaves darken their October masks, geese flap toward some ancient rhythm. Smoke fills the cortex, the soft cavities behind our eyes. When you grunt, I look up. You, my two-fisted hero, with your forehead sloped just so, your dark eyes lit with fire, and me, slack-jawed, crouching to catch your next syllable, my free hand on its own reaching toward your open face. And besides, I just can't help it. I fall in love with you all over again. Thank you.